We were 6 people with no payroll system or no benefits, and people were betting, like, are you really going to pay me? I'm like, we'll make this happen.
Welcome to UpTech Report. Now on our founder's journey, I'm joined by Hein, based in California, CEO of Propel. On part one of our discussion, we learned about their platform, which is a cloud-based PLM product life cycle management tool built on the Salesforce. And now we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into hearing Ray's story. Ray, I'm excited to hear, how did you get to where you are today? And feel free to go behind 5 years before that led up to where now?
Sure. Well, I mean, the real early interesting part of my story is that, I had parents that were both in kind of the design space. My mom was a drafts person back in World War II. And she was the only woman that, was really helping engineering teams build planes and General Motors, in a room of 500 guys and her. So she was kind of the Rosie the Riveter, back in World War II. And my dad was a radar electronic technician. So I've always been in and around, products like that. And then fast forward, I got involved in engineering and design teams fresh out of school. There was a lot of computer-aided design coming out in the 70s and 80s. So I started there. And then I got involved in management of really helping people think about how do you bring teams together and launch products, collaboratively globally. So in the 80s, the disk drive industry moved to Singapore and Bangkok, early on before we went to China. And I realized, man, it's inefficient if you've got global teams, and how do you actually work together? So my whole life has been around, launching products and being involved in that side. And then I got involved in the software side of helping automate and thinking about team collaboration. And the last piece was I was part of a company called Agile Software. And then in the 90s and early 2000s that we built the company, took it public, and then ultimately sold it to Oracle in 2007. So it was a 10-year ride. And I really enjoy helping companies, build teams that can launch products better and faster. So that's my passion.
Now, Propel is the first company that you founded and started?
Correct. Yeah. It's the first time I've been, CEO and founder of a company, but I've been on executive management teams probably the last 10, 12 years of in various roles, building teams along the way.
You're no stranger to leadership. That is for certain. For starting Propel, when it comes to funding, did you get VC funding or bootstrapped? How did it begin?
So I had taken a year off between the prior company Aptus and Propel, and started looking at this category that hadn't had a lot of innovation, and realized that it was going to move to the cloud and somebody was going to do it. And there's probably no better person than me. Not my ego. I'm pretty humble, but this could be fun. So I knew a gentleman named Matt Holleran, venture capitalist at Cloud Apps Capital. He had invested in a couple of companies built on the Salesforce tech stack, so he knew the space. And I went to him, he knew me, and I said, I want to build enterprise PLM, but different PLM on the Salesforce tech stack. And he said, I love the idea, let's go for it. And literally I had a mock prototype, a couple of sheets of paper, couple of cups of coffee, and he said, here's a couple of people we need to talk to. If they think it can be done, I'll fund it. So it's one of these crazy stories that it was like a month, of conversations. And then it was, let's put this thing together. And on April 22nd, we were at our corporate law firm. We incorporated it. 2 weeks later, we had a term sheet. 2 weeks later, we had our initial $2 million check written by Cloud Apps Capital and Matt. And 2 weeks later, we had our first 3 employees plus the 3 founders. So we were 6 people with no payroll system or no benefits. And people were betting, are you really going to pay me? I'm like, we'll make this happen. So it was amazing. And since then, we've raised, additional rounds of funding up to $28 million in total now. And our last round of financing was November of 2018. And we just have a great board and great investors that believe in us.
Your story is definitely not the common one. Many people can listen to that and say, well, that'll just happen to me, but that is powerful to know that those stories exist. What would you say, though, could be the biggest mistakes one could make when seeking funding?
I think I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. I think you have to know your business. so many people think they need funding, and understanding, are you going to compete in a big enterprise market? So we knew ultimately we were going to compete with SAP and Oracle and Dassault and Siemens and PTC, very big, large companies. So we only had one choice. We needed to plan for venture capital to swing for the fences in the long haul. But there are a lot of companies and a lot of businesses that you can bootstrap it, or you don't need that much money. And so I think people think they have to really think that part through of where they ultimately are going to go, how fast they're going to go there. And, I think people design, a lot of CEOs or founders are like, we're already thinking about the exit from day one. I'm like, no, that's the wrong move. You have to think about where you're going to be, what markets you're going to be in, and how much money is it really going to take for you to be that dominant leader in that space if you actually break out into one of the lucky guys that actually makes it.
Getting the funding is one piece, but then developing the product is next. How long did you guys spend in R&D and developing the product before you launched it?
Yeah, it's kind of fun. We started the company April 22nd, 2015. Salesforce's Dreamforce event was October, November. So we had, 3 or 4 use cases at the foundational level that we knew we wanted to solve. And Dreamforce is only once a year. So we had, I'd say, a minimum viable demo product by the end of the year for those 3 or 4 use cases. And then it was in early 2016 that we had what I would say is minimum viable purchasable product, where we could get 3 or 4 people, either friends of mine or people that knew me that would trust, but they would actually really write a check. And, when you talk to entrepreneurs and investors, it's like, okay, you can give away freeware and find friends that everybody will take something for free. But when people start to pay, and then you see, more and more people, that's how you know you have a real product. So we've had a 5+ year journey now, but our early entry was our first 2 or 3 customers were early 2016 that were willing to pay.
Nothing like a good deadline to get a minimum viable demo online. And
Right.
then the product itself. Getting those first few customers, any tactics or insights you can share on making that happen?
Yeah, I think listening to their needs right up front, and just knowing that the use case matches really well, and that you're not overselling. In the early days, it's really easy to try to oversell and be a Swiss Army knife, and it slices, it dices, it can do julienne fries, it does everything. It's like, no, be very transparent, and build relationships with those customers. And those, in those first 5 to 10 customers that we have, by and large, the majority are still with us. And we have amazing references, and we just held our propulsion event. We were able to get 15 customers to talk, and people love us. It's like how people love Apple products. We have, don't take my Propel away, is what we have now, because we have those trusted relationships. So I would say build trusted relationships from day one.
What stats can you share on the growth and where you are now today?
We've continued to grow. As I said, some good years it's been 75 to 100, 150% year over year growth. Even in a COVID year, we're exceeding our board plans. And we did some minor adjustments, but we're getting tailwinds behind us. So we're achieving all the milestones that our board wanted us to get to. And then there's the board milestones, but then there's my own personal and market milestones. And so we're seeing that we're taking away market share from some of the competitors and the legacy people in this category, because they're seeing what we do is different and adding value. So we're on track and on plan, to do what we want to do.
In order to grow, what are some common mistakes you see people make when it comes to marketing and being able to scale?
Well, so there's marketing and sales. I think there's a couple of things that you got to combine, right? So you talked about getting the product to market, and then driving customer success, and being maniacal about that. I think it's understanding your ideal customer profile. People talk about ICPs, and understanding the use cases, and making sure that there's clarity there, because it's too easy to change direction and slalom down a hill. But the more you stay focused and can, downhill and go straight, that I think is key. And early on, you want to try a lot of things and you want to fail fast, but you also got to be able to prioritize and stay focused, because it's too easy to spend a lot of money and then run out of money because you didn't know where you really were trying to go.
To be able to continue growing, obviously a team is paramount, a good team. Have you seen any common mistakes when it comes to hiring, whether you've seen it or you've done it, but you've learned from it that you can advise for?
Yeah, no, great question. I'd say sales and marketing is the toughest part of an organization to hire into, to be blunt. I'd say engineering, customer success, your G&A, you can find great people in those areas. But, we're a very domain-based problem. We solve, something that the chief product officer, chief revenue officer, and chief services officer wants to focus on. So finding the domain people and making sure that they know, they understand the space. And then I'd say one last thing is Alexander, is that you go through stages, and in the early stage, the people that can have the right risk profile, that can build with you, are great. And then you need to be able to shift to the next level and the next level. And some people can make the shift and some people can't. So when you're interviewing people, you kind of have to assess, almost like you think about sports teams, who's the right person at the right time to go fill a shortstop position, because that's the weakest part on your, on the team, but they may not be next year or the year after. You may need a great outfielder or a great pitcher, and you need to understand when's the right time to bring the right people on based on the stage of where you are in the company.
I imagine as the team grows, managing that and the culture changes over time. How big is the team today?
We're 65, heading to about 70, 75 people here.
And as it grows, what do you see are some of the lessons learned on how to keep the culture effective and working well together?
Boy, if you asked me that last year, I'd have a very different answer than in a COVID year, for sure, with everybody working from home. So we shut our offices on March 6th, ahead of, in California, it was St. Patty's Day, March 17th, that Governor Newsom shut everything down. But we were in Santa Clara, right in the hotbed where all the early COVID cases were being announced, nationally. So for us, we hold weekly all hands meetings at Wednesdays at noon. And I think we overshare everything about the company. And, everybody knows where we are on the business side. We run a monthly business review, and every business leader provides the 3 to 5 key metrics and slides. And we share that across everybody in the company. So there are no real secrets. Generally speaking, obviously we say we'll continue to share as long as everybody respects the non-disclosure. But this is how we build a great team, and it's transparent and trust. And we've got, we span the gamut from people fresh out of college to people maybe it's their first or second jobs to people that are more like me. And I think blending, I'd say 3 different cultures because of the age and experience levels, and managing that way, that's how we're doing it. So this transparency and trust and appreciation of each other.
What challenges do you see you're going to need to overcome, both internally with the team, communication-wise, and externally with your clients and consumers and the way the industry is going?
It's a large category. It's the 4th largest software category in the world. So our biggest challenge is, we have great customers, they love us, but the market, it's about, it's why we're talking to you. It's about getting our brand and getting people to know who Propel is and what great things we can do. So that's probably our biggest challenge, that we know we've got, the amazing next gen solution like Salesforce and Workday were in their respective areas, but it's getting that out and the brand awareness, number one. And I'd say that the second piece is, while we have, I think, done a really good job on being a remote workforce, figuring out the whole return to work and how to manage through that challenge. And, I'd say out of those 65 people, we've had a half a dozen people leave California and move to different states because, they want to go back home to Utah or Ohio or whatever. And it's like, well, we hired you here. How well are you going to be able to work remotely or not? So we're figuring that out as we go.
You're going to go back to everyone in office, hybrid model?
Well, I've always been, I love going into the office. Actually, my wife likes me to get out of the house and go to the office. Is probably the real answer. But no, I think we'll be in a hybrid model for sure. And I was always I'm going to go in and work my long days in the office, and I like to walk around and talk to people. But I've absolutely seen the value of remote work, and the pluses and the minuses. Remote work's awesome because we're making it work, but I'll tell you, people are working harder, and Zoom meeting back to back to back. There are very few gaps, and so employee burnout and managing even in a hybrid model, I think is something that we have to as CEOs and leaders have to really think about how this new model ultimately is going to help us deal with that. And the last piece, Alexander, I talked to all my, especially the folks that are earlier in their career. I'm like, I grew because I worked with people that saw what I could do, and I built coffee relationships or went to lunch and had very personal, physical relationships with each other, and people trusted in me. If we all are in a complete remote world, how do you build those deep relationships that I might have a superstar that's 26 years old and he's a rising star that's going to be a director or VP, or he could be a CEO when he's 35, but without the physical relationships and that, it's harder to see how we're going to grow teams and career path people and find those bright stars when you're in a complete remote environment.
For you, last two questions. How have you gained your insight and leadership? Are there any books, audiobooks, podcasts that you're currently reading to, listening, or would recommend that you've read in the past?
I'm a big fan of Daniel Pink, and Drive, and how you motivate people. Autonomy, purpose, and mastery are the three elements of Daniel Pink that it's always top of mind for me. So I'm a very people culture oriented CEO and leader. Dear Founder, it's on my desk. Dear Founder is by Maynard Gibb. He's a VC. It's letters of advice for anyone who leads, manages, or wants to start a business. So they're like, it's almost like chicken soup for the soul, but for CEO founders, if you will. Box is a cool book. It's a little bit geeky. It's about how a shipping container made the world smaller and the world economy bigger. And so if you think about e-commerce and Amazon, or the out-of-the-box experience that happens with an Apple product and how you love that, or fighting for shelf space, in the retail space, pretty cool. I like to read some geeky books that make you go, on that side. But for me, with COVID, we, as a culture thing, we gave all of our employees access to master classes. So when we had our 5-year celebration, we couldn't do a food celebration. We said, hey, 1 year, you guys, everybody go learn some really cool new stuff. So Jake Shimabukuro, who is a great Hawaiian ukulele player. So I have my ukulele. And so I'm watching a master class to try to figure out, in my spare time, I'm driving my wife nuts, but trying to learn how to play the ukulele, or watching Chris Hadfield on masterclass of how to be an astronaut, and goes back to my science, math, physics days. So those are the things that, I'm doing to watch and keep myself learning. Continuous learning is one of our core tenets as a company. So these are the kinds of things that I enjoy doing.
Last question for you. What kind of technology innovations do you predict we'll see in the near term, next year or so, and long term, 5-10 years?
I think we're seeing, we are seeing AI and bots and remote process automation. I think that we're going to continue to see, that element. And so I think it's really taking, like Snowflake now talking about big data lakes and how you bring data together. But at the end of the day, getting the data together doesn't matter. It's what really comes out on the insights and the outcomes, and how do you make it, efficient, so that the people that really need to get the insights can distill it in a way that's meaningful to them. And there's just so much data and so many ways to slice and dice it, whether you're using Tableau or all these really super cool visualization tools. Getting it so I get more time back in my day by taking the technologies that makes it useful and distillable and makes it efficient, I think is going to be, key for us technologists to make our jobs easier and more efficient so we can get more done and show value.
Thank you so much, Ray, for sharing your insight and this journey that you have been on. This has been wonderful.
Thanks. Appreciate the time.
Again, this is a part of our founders journey. To learn more about Ray's company, Propel, go to propelplm.com. Our sponsor again for today's episode is TerraLeap. If your company wants to learn how to better leverage the power of video to increase sales and marketing results, head over to terraleap.io and learn more about the new product customer stories. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll see you guys next time. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.